I used to believe that love was something you built through consistency. Shared breakfasts, warm laundry, movie nights with mismatched socks, a home with clean floors, framed pictures from forgotten vacations, and the comfortable silence that settles between two people who think they know each other completely. I believed my marriage was that, a quiet, stable, simple kind of happiness. For years, I told my friends that Daniel and I had the kind of relationship that just worked. We didn't fight much, we didn't shout, we didn't slam doors. He would call me sweetheart in front of his coworkers, kiss my forehead when he rushed out in the morning, and say he was lucky to have me. And I believed him. Maybe I needed to. Our house sat at the end of a peaceful cul-de-sac, surrounded by tall trees that whispered at night when the wind blew through them. I loved that house. The pale blue kitchen cabinets I repainted myself, the lemon tree on the patio, the soft hum of the dishwasher at the end of the day. It was a home built from pieces of my heart, from the life I thought we were building together. Daniel said he loved it too. He often called the house our pride, our future children's home, our biggest accomplishment as a couple, and I swallowed that like honey, sweet and comforting. But honey can hide a lot of poison. Looking back now, I can see the red flags, small and sharp like shards of glass glinting in sunlight. But back then, I stepped over them carefully, pretending they weren't there. It started with his phone, the way he suddenly turned it face down, the way he would take calls in the garage because of bad reception, the way he began leaving earlier and coming home later. You know how work is, he'd say, loosening his tie. Everything's just crazy right now. I believed him. I trusted him. That was my first mistake. Then came the temper, quiet, controlled, but sharp enough to cut. I'd ask something simple like, "Will you be home for dinner?" And he would sigh, long and frustrated, as if I demanded something unreasonable. "You're too emotional," he'd mutter. "Don't make everything a big deal." Not a big deal. Right. I learned to quiet my questions, to shrink my needs, to keep the peace. It's terrifying how easy it is to disappear inside your own marriage. 6 months before everything unraveled, I convinced Daniel to install a few security cameras around the house. We'd had a few porch thefts in the neighborhood, and it seemed practical. He resisted at first. "Saves what?" he scoffed. "We're not a bank, it's unnecessary." But after a break-in 2 blocks away, he reluctantly agreed, though he insisted on placing the cameras only outside. "I don't want to feel watched in my own home," he said. Fair enough. But the system we bought automatically included an interior camera facing the living room, angled toward the entryway. I kept it active because I liked the peace of mind. Daniel didn't like it, but he never bothered logging into the app, so he never thought about it again. It was a small detail, small enough he forgot, small enough it would destroy him later. On the surface, everything continued normally. Our routines, our dinners, our quiet evenings. Daniel still kissed my cheek every morning, still wore the wedding ring I chose for him, still called me love or darling when we had guests over. But his eyes, they weren't the same. They were somewhere else, distant, analyzing, calculating. Some nights he came home smelling of a perfume I didn't own. Something sweet, citrusy, not mine. Not anything I'd seen in our bathroom cabinet. He always said the same thing. "Gym towels at work smell weird. Must be detergent." I believed him. Or maybe I pretended to. Because the truth often arrives long before we're ready to see it. The night everything changed began quietly, like most catastrophes. The sun had already set, and I was sitting curled up on the couch with a blanket, scrolling through recipes. I wanted to try making a lemon pie crust from scratch the next day. My grandmother's birthday was coming up. She always loved anything lemon. Daniel had said he'd be late. Again. Something about a client dinner, something urgent, something with numbers he never bothered explaining. I didn't expect him home anytime soon. I didn't expect anything unusual. But then, his voice echoed from the foyer. I froze. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. Had he left his keys? Was he talking to someone? At first, I thought he'd come in quietly and was just on the phone. But his voice wasn't calm like usual. It was low, hushed, tense with something intimate. The kind of tone you use with someone you want, not someone you live with. I stood up slowly, my heart pounding with that awful premonition humans feel right before their world shifts. I stepped into the hallway just far enough to hear him clearly, but not to be seen. And then I heard it, his laugh, soft, warm, a laugh I hadn't heard in months, followed by a sentence that would destroy everything I thought I knew. I promise, baby. I'll divorce her soon. The house will be mine anyway. She won't fight it. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. My ears rang. My knees weakened. But he kept talking. She's too emotional to hold up in court. I'll make it look like she wants out. Just give me a little more time. I covered my mouth with my hand to keep from gasping. He spoke again. Yes, I want to live with you. In this house. She'll leave when the time is right. Trust me. A cold wave washed over me, so sharp it felt like drowning. My husband, the man I shared a life, a home, a bed with, was planning to erase me like I was nothing. And he was standing right in front of the camera, which was silently recording every second. I backed away slowly, quietly, my heart hammering against my ribs. I felt something inside me begin to crack, not from the betrayal itself, but from the chilling realization. He had been planning this for a long time, and I had been too blind to see it. That was the moment something else awakened in me. Not pain, not anger, but a cold, electric clarity. A clarity that whispered, he thinks he's in control. He has no idea what's coming. For a full minute, maybe more, I stood frozen in the hallway, gripping the wall as if the house itself were swaying. My mind refused to process what I'd just heard. My husband's voice already felt like a stranger's, but his words, those were something else entirely. They weren't said in anger. They weren't said in the heat of a fight. They were calm, smooth, practiced. This wasn't a sudden betrayal. This was a plan, a deliberate, calculated plan. My breath came out shaky as I forced myself to take one silent step back, then another. The living room felt colder, the shadows longer, the air heavier. It felt like the house, my house, was shrinking around me, squeezing the truth into my bones. I moved quietly, slowly, until I was out of sight. Daniel didn't notice. He never noticed me unless he needed something. So, yeah, he continued on the phone, his voice soft and warm, warmer than it had been with me in years. I'll tell her the marriage isn't working. She'll start crying, you know how she gets. I'll make it seem like the divorce is mutual. He chuckled. That way she won't fight for the house. She hates conflict. My hands curled into fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. Hates conflict. In his mind, that made me weak. Easy to push aside, easy to break. I stepped farther back until I reached the staircase, holding on to the railing to steady myself. My pulse thundered in my ears. He kept going, unaware that every word was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. Yes, baby, he whispered, voice dropping even lower. We'll finally be together. I promise. Just don't rush me. I need everything to look clean. I don't want her lawyer sniffing around. Her lawyer? I almost laughed. A sharp, humorless sound stuck in my throat. What lawyer? In his version of reality, I wasn't even smart enough to call one. I swallowed hard, trying to keep myself from breaking down right there on the stairs. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling my heartbeat hammer against my ribs like a desperate warning. But then he said something that made the bottom drop out of my world. I'll make sure she leaves voluntarily, he murmured. I'll talk to her about how unhappy we are, how I can't take her moods anymore. She'll blame herself. She always does. The pain hit differently this time, less like a stab and more like a fire catching and spreading through my chest. He knew me. He knew my insecurities, and he planned to use them against me. Yeah, he continued, she won't stay. She's soft. Too soft. She'll want what's best for me, even if it means losing everything. Soft, emotional, easy to manipulate. That's all I was to him. He kept talking, and somewhere between his promises to another woman and his strategy to erase me, something inside me went still, dead still. A coldness spread through me, not numbness, not shock, clarity, a clarity sharper than any pain, a clarity that whispered, "This is who he truly is. This is who he has always been." And finally, you see it. I looked toward the living room, toward the camera blinking quietly above the doorway. It had recorded everything, word for word, tone for tone, every lie, every betrayal. He had forgotten about the camera. He had forgotten about me, but the camera had not forgotten him. I took out my phone and opened the security app with trembling fingers. A live feed appeared on my screen. Daniel standing by the entryway, one hand on the wall, his hair slightly messy from the long day. He looked perfect, charming, clean cut, a man no one would suspect of anything, except now I knew better. I pressed record clip, saving the last 10 minutes of footage. Then I saved it again, and again, and again, to the cloud, to my phone, to a hidden drive, to a backup email. If Daniel thought I was soft, emotional, and naive, he was about to meet a different version of me, a version shaped by betrayal, a version sharpened by truth, a version fueled by karma. I slipped quietly into the kitchen, needing distance from his voice before I exploded. The room was dim, only the small stove light glowing softly on the countertops. I grabbed the edge of the island and exhaled shakily. My mind kept replaying his words on a loop. "I'll divorce her soon. She won't fight for the house. She's too emotional. She always blames herself." It felt unreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. But this was mine, all mine. The world I had imagined, our cozy little home, our future plans, the family dinners we used to dream about, shattered like thin porcelain against concrete. I wasn't crying anymore. The tears had burned away, leaving something steadier, something heavier, something powerful. I wasn't a victim. Not anymore. The universe had given me a gift, the truth. And truth is the beginning of justice, of karma. After a while, Daniel finished his call and walked upstairs. I listened to his footsteps, slow and satisfied, like a man who had everything under control, like a man who thought the world would bend for him. I stayed downstairs, lingering in the kitchen, pretending to be absorbed in my phone when he came back down. He didn't even look at me when he walked past. "Hey," he said casually. "You still up? Thought you'd be in bed." I forced a small smile. "Just reading something." He nodded, distracted. "Long day. I'm gonna shower." He kissed the top of my head, the same head he had planned to emotionally destroy, and headed to the bathroom. His lips felt like ice. When the water started running upstairs, I let out a slow breath. My hand drifted to the phone in my pocket. The recording was safe. Multiple copies, multiple locations. His lies were no longer shadows. They had shape, sound, proof. I looked around the house he planned to steal from me. The home I had decorated with love. The walls I painted. The plants I watered. The photos I hung. A home he wanted for another woman. I whispered into the empty air. "You won the first act, Daniel. But the final act belongs to me." And somewhere deep inside, beneath the hurt and betrayal, something small and fierce began to grow. Not revenge, justice, not anger, truth, not cruelty, karma, and karma doesn't miss. I didn't sleep that night, not because of the pain, though the pain was real, raw, and pulsing, but because my mind wouldn't slow down. It was as if the betrayal had flipped a switch inside me. A part of me I didn't know existed, awakened, sharp and focused, cutting through every lie that had ever wrapped around our marriage like fog. Daniel slept peacefully beside me, breathing softly, unaware that everything he'd built on deception was already beginning to crumble, unaware that I had recordings, unaware that I knew, unaware that karma had finally chosen a side, and it wasn't his. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling my heartbeat steady itself. I wasn't shaking anymore. The fear had drained away. The confusion had burned off. In its place grew something stronger, a quiet determination. This wasn't about revenge. It was about balance, about truth, about justice, about taking back the power I didn't even realize I had surrendered. By sunrise, I had my plan. Step one was simple. I needed evidence. Not just the recording from last night, but everything. Every crack in the facade, every lie, every missing hour, every suspicious financial move, every secret he thought he had buried. I waited until Daniel left for work. He kissed my forehead, told me he'd be busy all day, and asked if I could handle dinner. I nodded sweetly, hiding the disgust twisting in my stomach. The moment the door clicked shut, I locked it behind him and stood in the foyer, listening to the quiet. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. I felt in control. I opened the camera app and replayed the recording from the night before, his voice echoing through the living room speakers. "I'll divorce her soon, don't worry. The house will be mine." Every word was a weapon. My weapon. I saved it again, then exported the audio separately. Then I uploaded it to a private cloud folder under a name only I would recognize. Evidence. Secured. Step 2. The finances. Daniel had always handled the money. He said I was too trusting with numbers, that I didn't understand investments. I used to accept that, thinking he simply liked being responsible. Now I understood why. I opened his office door. The smell of his cologne hit me, that sharp, expensive scent he bought to feel professional. I walked straight to his desk and sat down in his leather chair. For a moment, I was afraid my hands would shake. They didn't. His laptop password was the same as always, his mother's birthday. He never changed it. He never thought he had to. I logged in easily. Emails, bank statements, private chats, transaction logs. I opened everything. The more I read, the colder I became. There were transfers I didn't recognize, thousands of dollars sent to a name I didn't know, then another and another, hidden payments, hotel bookings, secret dinners, a phone bill for a number I'd never seen. He had an entire second life beneath my feet, like a trapdoor I had never noticed, because I was too busy trusting the person who built it. Receipts, messages, screenshots, statements. I saved them all. Every lie he ever typed, every red flag he ever hid, every betrayal he hoped I'd never find. His own words were digging his grave. Step 3. The lawyer. I wasn't naive anymore. I didn't cry into a pillow or beg the universe for mercy. I called a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney, the best one I could find within a 50-mile radius. A woman named Abigail Ross. Her reviews described her as ruthless, precise, emotionally bulletproof, and the attorney husbands fear most. Perfect, she answered after the second ring. Ross Law, she said in a crisp, steady voice. Hi, I replied, my voice calm. I need to schedule a consultation. It's urgent. Is it domestic, financial, infidelity, safety? Infidelity, I said, and fraud. There was a pause, a dangerous pause. Her tone changed. Come in today. I didn't hesitate. I printed out every piece of evidence, placed everything into a thick folder, grabbed the backup drive, and headed out the door. The woman at the front desk greeted me with a polite smile, then led me to Abigail's office. A corner room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a desk covered in neatly organized stacks of legal files. Abigail stood to greet me, tall, sharp-featured, with eyes like polished steel. Sit, she said. Tell me everything. I did. Every detail, every red flag I ignored, every second of the recording, every financial secret I uncovered. She didn't interrupt. She didn't soften. She didn't pity me. She listened with the precision of a surgeon studying a tumor she was about to remove. When I finished, her expression hardened. He's planning to force you out of your home, she said. Yes. He believes you'll fold emotionally. Yes. He thinks you won't fight. Yes. She leaned forward. Then let's make sure he never sees it coming. The next hour was a whirlwind. Legal strategy, financial protection, temporary asset freezes, silent monitoring. Abigail explained each step with cold confidence. When he files for divorce, she said, he'll assume he's holding the cards, but by then we'll already have dismantled every angle he plans to use. Her eyes sharpened. And the recordings. They're gold. A slow, calm breath escaped me. For the first time since last night, I felt something warm. Not hope exactly, but strength. A sense of being carried by something bigger than myself. Karma, maybe. Daniel had worked in the shadows. I would work in the light. He used manipulation. I used truth. He built lies. I built evidence. He underestimated me. I wasn't making that mistake. When I returned home, the sky was beginning to dim. The house felt different now. Not like a prison of heartbreak, but like the battleground where I would win. I walked past the camera above the living room doorway and touched its base gently. "You did good," I whispered. Then I went into the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out a box. Inside were old journals, letters, wedding photos. I stared at our wedding picture, the one where he held me close and smiled like he meant every word of his vows. I used to love this photo. Now I saw a mask, a man who mastered the art of pretending. I placed the picture face down. Then I sat on the edge of the bed, stretched my hands over my knees, and whispered, "You wanted to end our marriage on your terms, Daniel. But this time, the ending will be mine." And somewhere, as if the universe were listening, the house creaked softly, almost approvingly. Karma was coming, and I was its messenger. The day Daniel planned to file for divorce arrived like a storm I had been watching from miles away. I'd seen the clouds build. I'd heard the distant thunder. I knew exactly when the lightning would strike. It was a Tuesday. He left early, wearing his best suit, humming to himself like a man about to win a game no one else was playing. He didn't know I had already called the courthouse. He didn't know Abigail had filed a counter-petition hours before he even woke up. He didn't know every lie he planned to use against me was documented, time-stamped, and ready to burn through his perfect little narrative. He still thought I was soft, emotional, predictable. He had no idea who I had become. When he returned home that evening, he tried to look solemn, as if delivering tragic news he wished he could avoid. "We need to talk," he said gravely. I looked up from the kitchen table, calm, composed. "All right." He sat across from me, clasping his hands dramatically. "I've been unhappy for a long time," he began, his voice heavy with false sorrow. "This marriage just isn't working anymore." I nodded. "I see." He blinked, thrown off. He expected tears, a breakdown, anything. But I looked at him the same way one looks at a stranger on a train. He cleared his throat and continued, "I think we should separate. It's for the best, for both of us." "I understand," I said softly. "Have you filed for divorce already?" His face twitched. "Yes, I filed today." "Oh," I said gently, "you might want to check again." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Right on time. Daniel opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stood outside. "Daniel Hayes?" "Yes," he stammered. "You need to come with us to answer questions regarding financial misconduct and identity fraud." His eyes widened. What are you talking about? That's ridiculous. There must be a mistake." But I had seen the bank statements, the forged signatures, the loans he took under my name, the hidden accounts, the transfers to another woman. Karma wasn't coming. Karma was here. "What the hell is this?" he shouted at me as the officers read him his rights. I stood calmly in the dining room doorway. "You stole money," I said quietly. "You forged documents. You planned to steal my home. And Daniel, you forgot about the cameras." He went pale. "The cameras?" he breathed. "Yes," I said. "The living room one recorded everything, including your little call." His face collapsed. He finally understood. The game he thought he was winning, he'd already lost. Completely. The officers led him outside. Neighbors peeked through windows. Curtains fluttered. Whispers spread like wildfire. I watched him struggle, rage, cry, deny, every emotion flashing across his face in seconds. He had always cared about appearances more than the truth, and now the truth had become the appearance. As they put him into the car, he looked back at me. "You ruined my life," he screamed. I stepped onto the porch and said clearly, "No, Daniel, you ruined your own." The patrol car drove off, and for the first time in months, I breathed. But karma wasn't finished yet. The next morning, we met with the attorney handling the divorce proceedings. Daniel appeared with a cheap lawyer he had hired last minute. His suit was wrinkled, his hair mussed, his confidence shattered. He still tried to act superior. It didn't last long. Abigail began with the recordings. The moment his voice filled the room, his promises to his lover, his plan to manipulate me, his strategy to steal the house. Daniel's entire posture collapsed. His lawyer winced, mine smiled, and I sat there, silent, steady, untouchable. Then came the financial documents, the hidden accounts, the transfers, the fraud. His lawyer leaned toward him and whispered, "We can't fight this." Daniel's face broke into panic. "She planned this," he snapped. "She set me up." Abigail leaned forward. "Your own words set you up." He looked at me, eyes wild. "You can't do this to me," he said, voice shaking. "I gave you everything." I held his gaze, calm, cold, honest. "You tried to take everything," I said, "but you forgot one thing, Daniel. Truth doesn't lose." In the end, the court granted the house to me, full financial restitution, a restraining order, a freeze on his hidden accounts, a separate criminal investigation. He left the courthouse with nothing but a stack of paperwork and a life collapsing behind him. Weeks passed. I expected grief. I expected loneliness. I expected anger. But strangely, what I felt most was peace. I reclaimed my home. I painted the living room a new color. I replaced the photos with my own art, my own memories, my own life. I opened the windows every morning and let the sunlight in, light that had never felt so warm before. The house no longer felt tainted. It felt mine, entirely mine. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the last streaks of sun disappear behind the trees, I felt something shift inside me. Not closure, something deeper. Freedom. Daniel had taken years of my life, but in the end, he gave me back something I didn't even know I'd lost. Myself. I sipped my tea, listening to the wind rustle the leaves. The world felt quiet, safe, balanced, and just before the night settled in, I whispered softly into the twilight, "You thought you could destroy me, Daniel, but you only liberated me." Then I smiled, calm, serene, unbroken, and added, "Karma always comes, and it never misses.